hoses. They're properly mounted and secured at both ends. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts, not leaking. My belt-driven alternator is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. All the wires are connected. My belt has no cuts or frays, and the free place should be between half to 3/4 of an inch. Looking at my general hoses, properly mounted and secured at both ends, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and not leaking. I'm looking at my gear-driven air compressor, properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. My gear-driven power steering pump is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. My oil dipstick is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, filled to the factory specs, and I will check it by pulling it out. My belt-driven water pump is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. The belt has no cuts or frays, and the free place should be between half to 3/4 of an inch, and it's not leaking. My coolant reservoir is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, filled to the factory specs, and not leaking. My power steering reservoir is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking, and filled to the factory specs. My steering gearbox is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. Steering gearbox hose is properly mounted and secured at both ends, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and not leaking. My steering linkage is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no missing castle nuts or cotter pins. My spring hangers are properly mounted and secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken. My leaf springs are properly mounted and secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, none missing, none shifted. My U-bolts are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, none missing. My shock absorber is properly mounted and secured at both ends, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, not leaking. My brake chamber hose is properly mounted and secured at both ends, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and it's not leaking. My slack adjuster and push rod are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, and with the brakes released and pulled by hand, my push rod should not move no more than an inch. My brake drum is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken. The brake lining is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no oil or debris, and the friction material is not worn dangerously thin. My steer tire is properly mounted and secured, no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, no less than 432 seconds of tread left. The air pressure is filled to the factory specs, and I would use a tire gauge to check that. My rim is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, no illegal welds. All my lug nuts are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, none missing, no rust trails or powder residue, and no cracks around the bolt holes. My hub axle seal is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, bent, or broken, filled to the factory specs, and not leaking.